Welcome to Graveyard Mile, where the past never stays buried, and every story has a chill waiting for you. If you love late-night mysteries, haunted places, and spine-tingling legends, you're in the right place. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a walk through the shadows.
Fine, drifting powder that barely registered against the windshield. The kind of snow you ignore. The kind that makes you think you'll be home before it matters. I remember checking the time on the dash when I pulled out of my aunt's driveway. 1:06 p.m. The radio was still playing Christmas music, even though it was already January. My mother had hugged me too long before I left. My father had told me to text when I got home. I didn't. The road out of town narrowed quickly, houses thinning into trees. Self-service dropped to 1 bar, then none. Snow thickened, flakes growing larger, wetter. The sky dimmed into a flat gray sheet, swallowing distance. By the time I realized the storm was real, I was already committed. The road curved sharply through forest I didn't recognize. Tall pines, bare hardwoods, no lights, no signs. Just black tree trunks and white ground, closing in on both sides. I slowed. That's when the car slid. The back end fishtailed, tires losing grip. I overcorrected. Too hard. The world spun. Trees flashed past the windshield in a blur of dark vertical lines. Then, impact. The car slammed sideways into a snowbank, nose dipping hard. Airbags in deploy, but the jolt knocked the breath from my chest. The engine coughed, sputtered, died. Silence rushed in. Snow fell harder now, drumming softly against the roof. I sat there, hands locked around the steering wheel, heart hammering, breath fogging the air. Everything smelled like cold rubber and antifreeze. I checked myself. No blood, no sharp pain, just shaking. I tried the ignition. Nothing. The headlights still worked, casting 2 pale cones into the storm. The road ahead was empty. Behind me, the same. I reached for my phone. No signal. Of course. I leaned back and laughed once, short and brittle. Of course, I said out loud just to hear a voice. That was when I noticed how quiet it was. Not peaceful quiet. Listening quiet. I waited in the car for almost 20 minutes. The snow piled quickly, softening the edges of the world. Visibility dropped to maybe 30 feet. The road vanished beyond that, swallowed by white. I honked the horn once. The sound felt wrong in the stillness. Too loud, too sudden. It echoed strangely, swallowed almost immediately. I didn't honk again. At 1:42 p.m., I heard something. At first, I thought it was the wind, a low sound, irregular. Not quite a howl, not quite a crack of branches. Then it came again, closer. It sounded wet. I rolled the window down an inch, just enough to listen. The cold stabbed in immediately. The sound came from the trees to my right, a dragging noise, followed by a sharp, hollow crack. Then nothing. I told myself it was a deer, or multiple deer. Animals moved differently in winter. Bones snapped. Things died. Still, I locked the doors. I don't know how long passed before curiosity overpowered fear. 5 minutes. 10. I grabbed my flashlight from the glove compartment. I'll just look, I said. Just see. The words sounded thin. I stepped out of the car. The cold hit like a slap. Snow soaked through my boots immediately, melting, numbing my toes. My breath came fast and loud, the only sound I could hear now. The forest loomed close. Too close. The flashlight beam cut through the snowfall, bouncing off trunks, branches, drifting flakes. That's when I smelled it. Metallic. Thick. Fresh. I followed the smell before I realized I was doing it. The deer lay about 20 feet into the woods. It was massive. A buck. Its body was on its side, legs twisted at wrong angles, dark blood staining the snow beneath it. Steam rose faintly from the wound. The head was gone, not torn off, removed. The neck was clean in a way that didn't make sense. Jagged, yes, but deliberate, not the work of an animal. No tearing, no chewing, just violence, purposeful violence. I gagged, turning away, hand over my mouth. That was when I saw the tracks. Human footprints, large, deep. They circled the carcass, but didn't approach it closely, as if the person had been careful not to step in the blood. The stride was long, too long. They didn't lead away. They just stopped, like the person had vanished. The woods pressed in around me. Snow whispered as it fell. My flashlight trembled in my hand. I backed away slowly, eyes never leaving the body. Something cracked behind me. I spun. Nothing. I ran. I slammed back into the car, locking the door so hard my fingers slipped. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. I turned the headlights on high. That's when I saw it. The deer's head. It sat on the hood, facing me. Its glassy eyes reflected the light, wide and empty. Blood streaked down the white paint, already freezing into dark lines. Snow gathered in its open mouth. I screamed. I don't remember unlocking the door. I don't remember opening it. I only remember the head suddenly being inside the car, on the passenger seat. I slammed the door shut, scrambling back, sobbing. My hands fumbled for phone, even though I knew it wouldn't work. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually, the snow slowed. The forest stayed silent. At 6:47 p.m., headlights appeared down the road. My father's truck. By the time he reached me, the deer was gone. The head, the body, the blood, all of it. Just clean snow and broken branches. My father listened without interrupting. His face stayed calm, too calm. When I finished, he nodded once. "Get in the truck," he said. "We'll talk at home." As we pulled away, I looked back. In the headlights, I saw fresh footprints crossing the road, following us. Years later, I still don't drive that road. Sometimes in winter, I see deer near the treeline. Sometimes they're missing their heads. Sometimes I think they're warnings. And sometimes I wonder if the thing in the woods let me go, or if it's just waiting for the next storm. My father didn't ask me to describe it again on the drive home. That should have comforted me. Instead, it made everything worse. The heater blasted warm air that smelled faintly of motor oil and pine-scented air freshener. Snow clung to the truck's wheel wells, thudding softly as we drove. The road disappeared behind us, swallowed by white. I kept checking the mirrors. Nothing followed. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had stepped aside rather than fallen behind. When we reached home, the porch light was already on. My mother stood in the doorway, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Relief washed over her face when she saw me climb out of the truck. "What happened?" she asked. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. My father answered for me. Car slid. Storm got bad. That was it. No mention of the deer. No woods. No footprints. I stared at him, but his eyes stayed forward, already moving toward the door. Inside, the house felt too small, too warm. Every creak of settling wood made my shoulders tense. I stripped off my coat and boots mechanically, hands still trembling. My mother watched me closely. "You're pale." "I'm tired," I said. It wasn't a lie. Sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the deer's head on the hood, its mouth open, snow collecting on its tongue. I felt again the impossible certainty that it hadn't been placed there quietly, that someone had stood beside the car, watching, listening. At 2:11 a.m., I heard something outside my window, a soft crunch, then another, Footsteps in snow. I sat up slowly, heart pounding. The house was dark, silent. I waited. Nothing. Eventually, exhaustion dragged me under. By morning, the storm had passed. Sunlight reflected sharply off fresh snow, making everything painfully bright. The world looked clean, innocent. My car was towed later that day. The mechanic said the undercarriage was damaged but reparable. He didn't mention blood, didn't mention hair or bone fragments. I didn't ask. I tried to move on. That's what people do, right? You survive something unexplainable, and you tell yourself it was stress, fear, coincidence. Animals die. Storms distort perception. Shock fills in gaps with nightmares. That explanation worked. Until it didn't. 3 days later, a deer carcass was found less than a mile from our house. Decapitated. This one had been hung from a tree. The police chalked it up to hunters. Someone breaking the law, maybe trying to intimidate landowners. Rural vandalism. But hunters don't take the head and leave the meat. Hunters don't arrange bodies. Hunters don't come back. Because the next week, another appeared. Closer. I started noticing things I hadn't before. Tracks near the treeline behind our property. Not always fresh, but deep enough that snow didn't fully erase them. Long strides. Careful placement. Sometimes they stopped abruptly, as if whoever made them had paused for a long time. Listening. I brought it up once at dinner. Have you seen footprints out back? I asked casually. My father's fork paused midair. No, he said. Then, after a moment, don't go walking alone. That was all. The tension in his voice told me everything he wasn't saying. 2 weeks after the crash, I went back to the road. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to prove it was just a place. Just trees and snow and bad memories. Maybe I needed to see that nothing waited there anymore. The forest looked smaller in daylight. Still, when I reached the bend where the car had spun out, my chest tightened. Snowbanks lined the road like frozen waves. Tire tracks cut through them where my car had been drag-free. I parked and got out. The woods were quiet. No birds. No wind. I stepped off the road. The clearing wasn't hard to find. The blood was gone, but the ground was disturbed. Trampled, packed down in places that didn't make sense. And there, etched into the snow with deliberate care, were symbols, not letters, not words, just repeating marks, carved deeply with something sharp. I knelt closer. They circled the space where the deer's body had been, like a boundary, or a warning. Something snapped behind me. I turned. A man stood at the edge of the trees. Tall, still, watching. I never saw his face, but I knew. I ran. I didn't tell my parents about the symbols. I didn't tell the police. Some things feel wrong to share, like naming them gives them power. The deer stopped appearing after that. Winter loosened its grip. Snow melted into slush, then mud. The forest came back to life. But sometimes when I drive at night, I swear I see shapes just beyond the headlights, standing still, waiting for storms. Years later, I moved away. Different state, different roads. But every winter, without fail, I get the same dream. I'm driving. Snow is falling. The road is empty. And something steps into my headlights. Not a deer, not a man, but something that learned how to be both. And every time just before impact, I wake up knowing one thing with terrible certainty. It never needed the deer. That was just practice. I didn't move back home after college. I told people it was about work, about opportunity, about wanting something different. That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. The truth was that I never felt alone again. Not really. No matter where I went, how crowded the city was, or how far south, I moved where winter barely touched the ground. I carried the woods with me. Sometimes it came in dreams. Sometimes in small, ordinary moments, like stopping on a quiet road at night and feeling that same pressure in the air, the sense that something had noticed me, that it remembered. I avoided snow whenever I could. I chose places where winter was short and mild. Still, every few years, a storm would roll through, rare, inconvenient, disruptive, and every time it did, something happened. The first was in Pennsylvania. I was driving home late. Snow just began to fall. Traffic slowed to a crawl. Someone ahead of me swerved and clipped the guardrail. No injuries, just chaos. As I passed the scene, headlights caught something beyond the shoulder of the road. A deer, standing upright. At first, I thought it was just the angle, a trick of light and shadow. Then it turned its head, or tried to. There was nothing above the neck. The body stood there impossibly balanced. Steam rising from the stump, snow collecting on exposed muscle. No blood touched the ground. It watched me pass. I didn't stop. I didn't sleep that night. The second was farther west. A co-worker invited me to his family's cabin during the holidays. Remote, quiet, surrounded by trees. I said yes before I could think better of it. The first night, the power went out. We lit candles, drank, laughed, told stories. Sometime after midnight, I stepped outside to smoke. Snow had fallen while we talked, coating everything in white. The world felt hushed, insulated. That was when I saw the tracks. They circled the cabin, large, measured, never approaching the walls, never leaving. I followed them with my eyes until they ended at the edge of the trees. And there, half hidden behind a trunk, was a shape that didn't move. I flicked my lighter. For just a second, flame illuminated fur, and skin, and eyes that sat too high on a skull-shaped wrong. I dropped the lighter and went back inside. In the morning, the tracks were gone. So was the snow. I called my father after that. We hadn't talked much in years. Our conversation stayed shallow. Whether work, family updates, that meant very little. This time, I asked him directly, "What did you know?" I said. Silence stretched on the line. Finally, he sighed. "Some places don't belong to us," he said. "Never did." "That's it." "No," he said. "That's all I can say." I almost asked more, but something in his voice stopped me. Fear, not of the thing itself, but of speaking its name. I started researching. Local legends, old newspapers, archive police reports. Patterns emerged. Isolated winter roads, storms, crashes, hunters who vanished, cars found abandoned with doors open and engines cold, animals left arranged, not eaten, warnings, tests. One report mentioned a deer head placed carefully on the driver's seat of a pickup truck. No fingerprints, no tracks leading away. Another described a man found alive, wandering along the highway barefoot in the snow, unable to explain what he'd seen. He died of exposure 2 hours later. He kept repeating the same phrase. They're learning. Plural. The last time I saw it was last winter. I live alone now, on the edge of a small town. Trees line the back of my property. I tell myself it's coincidence. Trees are everywhere. A storm came through unexpectedly. Heavy snow. Power flickered. I stood at the window, watching flakes spiral down in the porch light. That's when I saw movement. At the treeline, something stepped forward. Tall, still, watching my house the way a hunter watches a blind. It didn't come closer. It didn't need to, because on the porch, carefully placed in front of my door, was a deer's head, fresh, warm enough that steam curled faintly into the air. Its eyes were gone. In their place, carved into bone with precise, patient cuts, were symbols I recognized, the same ones from the clearing. Circles, boundaries, marks of passage. I didn't call the police. I didn't scream. I stood there for a long time, staring through the glass. Then I did the only thing that felt right. I opened the door. Cold rushed in. Snow blew across the threshold. The thing in the trees shifted slightly. Acknowledging me, I stepped outside. The porch creaked under my weight. The woods waited. I don't know what will happen next, but I know this. It was never about the deer. It was about learning where we break, where fear makes us quiet, where storms erase tracks and silence keeps secrets. And it's still out there, watching roads, listening for crashes, waiting for the next person who thinks they'll be home before the snow matters.